Hi and welcome to my PlayHouse. And today I've moved into the data center, and it's because I got a pretty good question on the comments in one of the videos about the IBM 3650, the Model 1. And the question was, which is the best hard drives to use? And he was talking about hard drives over 2 terabytes if he was able to make more than 2 arrays. I did answer as good as I could, but I thought it would be a good subject for a video as well. And I'm here with my nice amount of this model of servers, and it comes with a RAID adapter inside of the server. If you've seen the server video about this server, you see the RAID adapter. And the ones I got has 6 slots for 3.5 inches hard drives, like these. Pretty normal hard disk type. And the question of which hard drives are the best really depends on what you are using the server for. For a long time, if you wanted the fastest access to your data, you had to go with SAS drives. Nowadays, you can go and switch to solid state drives, and they will be faster than SAS drives. The amount of IOs you can get from the disks is highly improved in SATA drives. But I've heard that there's some issues if you are using the server in a specific way and have a page file from Windows and cache files and something like that. It could still be a good idea to have it on a SAS drive, because it has more, it's able to write the same block over and over again more times, even though it's slower. And the solid state drives, they die at some amount of read writes, but I haven't tested that. I just heard it's rumors. But if you need a large amount of data, you can of course still go with SAS or with the SSDs, but it gets really expensive. You can go with SAS drives, but it also gets very expensive. And then there are SATA drives, and you can actually run SATA drives in these bays. You can buy SATA drives in the bays, or you can take off old SAS drives and exchange them for like 2 terabytes normal hard drives that you would probably put in your computer under your table or something like that. The connections are about the same, so it should fit okay. I don't know if you're able to blend these. I haven't even tried this. I've never had the need of a lot of data on the servers. I usually use the iSCSI option. I have some iSCSI SANs up here, and I use those. Normally when I use my servers, I just use them. I use their internal disks for boot. And up here, how far can you see? Let's get the camera. All these servers, they only have 1 drive each. It is low 300 gigabytes. And that was the largest disk that I had available to me at the time. And the reason for it to only have 1 disk is that I found out that each disk uses about 10 watts of power. So if I fill up the server with hard drives, it's 60 watts of power and when I only need the server to boot on the disk and not really use it anymore, then it switches to using the iSCSI SAN. It was kind of a waste to have a lot of disks in the server, so I went with that. I did also try to boot it from a USB stick. This was possible, but it took a while. It was slow going, so I went back to using a disk. It was like it took 10 minutes to boot from a USB stick and a couple of minutes to boot from a hard drive. But you might want to have some more data available on your server. Like down here I have a server here that has, right now it has 4 disks. 2 of them I've pulled those out, and I've done that to prevent the air to go through there too easily. Normally I have these, these stoppers for air, so that the air will not go through there. It needs to cool the hard drives that are in there, because if all these was just open, there wouldn't go enough air through this one. The air don't want to go the hard way. So I put in the fillers, and I ran dry of fillers, so I had to use real hard drives. But let's say that you have this server and you want to use the maximum amount of storage available. This server will write out of the box with the RAID controller that is built into it. The name is this one. It will handle 2 terabyte drives, actually more or less like this one. This is a pretty slow drive. I think this one is only 5400 rounds per minute. I can't see that, but it's not the preferable drive for a server. But you could put 2 terabytes in each of these slots, and you would have 12 terabytes. But you would have no safety. You could put up, here is disk 0 and disk 1, disk 2 and disk 3, disk 4 and disk 5. So you could make mirrors, like these 2 disks would be a mirror, and these 2 disks would be a mirror, and these 2 disks would be a mirror. You could do that, but then you lose half of your disk space. So you would now only have 6 terabytes of disk space divided on 3 RAID arrays. Then you could also put it up in a RAID 5, like all the drives in a RAID 5, and then you would lose 1 disk, and that would be then you would have 10 gigabyte of data. 10 terabyte of data, and 1 disk safety. So 1 disk could go offline and it would still be running, and then you can exchange that disk to something else, and that will be just fine. There is another option that is called RAID 6. It costs 1 disk more. So if it was a RAID 6, you would be running 6 disks, but 2 of them would be safety and 4 of them would be data. And this way you would get 8 terabytes of data, 2, 4, 6, 8, and you would have 2 disks for the safety. This means that if 1 disk dies, there is still 1 disk for safety, so this one could actually die as well. But let's just say that only this disk is dead right now. This means that this disk can be exchanged and put in a new one, and it's very fast to rebuild this disk. Rebuilding is when you exchange a disk for another one, and it has to divide all the data back. And it's much faster in RAID 6 because it has all the data protection over here. If it's a RAID 5, it has to calculate all the safety once more. It's much faster to do that on a RAID 6. Plus, you just have that one disk more in safety. There is also the options of going with a RAID 5 with a hot spare. This means that you will have 5 disks running and 1 disk inside the tray doing absolutely nothing. It will be connected, it will have power on, it will be in the server, but it will just be standing by. Should a disk fail in a RAID 5, then it will take in the hot spare and say, now we need the hot spare. So the hot spare will go into the array and be the new disk, and the disk that has failed will be blinking yellow and not be working. This is also a very good solution, but when it's already in the system, you might as well put it up as a RAID 6. It gives the same safety, and pretty much there's no downsides to it. There is some read and write of data, because one of the things that is slower when you're driving a RAID is when you have to write data to your disks. Very often, if I have a megabyte that I want to write down to my disks, if I just have one disk, it will just write that megabyte down to that disk. If I have 2 disks, it will have to divide that 1 megabyte to 2 disks, and that might be okay. But if I have a RAID 5 or RAID 6 or RAID whatever, it will have to divide that megabytes and calculate checksums and other stuff. And that is sometimes slower depending on the RAID controller, if that's fast or slow. If I needed the maximum amount of space on a server and still some safety, I would go with a RAID 6. And actually, these Ecologic Sands, they are running with a RAID 6 and 2 hot spares. And that means that I could take out 2 disks, and 2 of the other disks will go in and be in the RAID 6, and then I could take out 2 more disks, and that would be the complete safety of that array on a disk shelf like this. So out of 14 disks, the 4 of the disks are safety. And it's a bit higher than all these servers. If I fill up all these servers with disks, each server will be a weak point. So if I had to build this server for production, and some safety was needed, like the data on it was actually, we needed that to be safe. First, it would be a good idea to take a regular backup of it, and then it would be good to have some safety in the disk array. So I would go with the configuration that I just told you about. I would go out and I would buy SATA drives, like this 2 GB disk, 2 TB disk. I would go for one with 7200 RPMs, a bit faster than this one. I'm pretty sure this is 5400 RPMs, but I don't know where I have them from. But I would buy 7200 RPM drives, for the server, I would put them all in, and I would configure it with a RAID 6. And 2 terabyte disks, you can buy those in a range of prices. They range from about, the cheapest one will probably be around $100, and the most expensive one could be $500, $600, $700. I would go with something in the cheaper range. 7200 RPMs would probably be about $150, and I would go for that. I would choose a disc with a good guarantee, like 2-3 years, if I could get one of those, and I would buy them from a dealer that exchanged bad discs without blinking. I don't want a lot of hassle and accusations of not treating the disc right every time that I exchange it. I want it exchanged, and I don't want to answer too many questions, so that's also important. And I rather want an extra disc on the shelf, ready to go into my array if something goes wrong. Then I want 6 expensive drives in the array. Even an expensive drive can fail, and it's a lot more trouble to get a replacement unit for an expensive drive than one of the cheaper ones. But it also depends on how often you're able to go down and look at your servers. Like this one, it has a yellow light diode right now. This server has been off for a while. I don't really know what that yellow light diode, I've forgotten. Okay, it's a memory error. I think I remember that it has a bad block or something like that. But once in a while you have to go down and check if all the hard drives are okay. Especially if you're running them on servers like this. You have to check if the drives are okay. And if it's not okay, you have to replace a disk or drive. And if your data center is 200 miles away, you won't go down there every day to check for bad drives, and then you need some more safety. Then a RAID 6 might not be enough, because if you're only there once a month, you could be so unlucky that 3 drives would fail in 1 month. It would be rather unlikely, but it could happen if something bad happens to the data center. Let's say the air conditioning fails and everything heats up. It could lose 3 drives, or it could be power outage, lightning strike, whatever. So, but if you go down and look at your servers every day, you can go with less security, because you're there, you're watching it. You can also go into the server and set up the alert system for the system to alert you if something goes wrong, if the disk fails. And if you do that, you will get an email or a text telling you that server number LTV/ESXi host number 9 has a bad disk. And that could be a good option, because then you know that you need to go and see the disk in the data center. And that's a video that I really want to do at some time, show how you go in and configure that, because I haven't done that on my servers, and I would like to try and set that up. But which disks are the best for your server really depends on what you're doing on that server. On these servers that are ESXi hosts, I only need a boot drive. And down here, all these drives are only in the server to prevent the air to blow through it. But if I didn't have my iSCSI SAN or another SAN, I would be using the drives. And I was actually using the drives at some point. and I had a lot of 73.4 gigabyte SAS drives in these, and I took them out, and they're actually on the shelf in here for bad days. And hard drives are some of the things that are still worth a bit of money in a server, because they die from time to time, and that makes them worth money if you have one that is good. So what if you need disks for high performance? Yeah, then you won't choose SATA disks. You will probably go with solid state disks or SATA disks, and you want to put them in array or and choose a RAID. RAID 5 and RAID 6 are not the fastest RAID configurations. Actually, I think that 0 and 1 are the fastest, and probably 0 is the fastest, but it's also the one with 0 safety. If a disk goes, everything dies. If you configure this server with a RAID 0, you get all the available disk space on all the drives and no security. And it's very fast when you write to the disks and when you read from the disks, because it does not calculate a checksum, it just divides the files and write it. You lose all the security, so you have to do that in another way. You might have two servers doing the same thing, so if one crashes, the other one takes over. Or you have to choose faster disks and another RAID configuration. But this IBM 3650, the built-in RAID controller is able to handle 2 terabyte disks. If you want larger disks than that, then you will have to change the server RAID adapter to another model, and I read on the internet that the 5015 would be good to at least 4 terabyte disks. So that would be quite a lot. That would be 4 times 6, 24 terabytes of data, and then minus some for security. And now that was a lot of rambling. I don't know if you got half of it, but it's very difficult to give a straight answer to what disk configuration is the right one for your server. But I always try to think economy into it and try to find the cheapest solution for the problem, and think I can always upgrade it with some of the money that I saved on the cheap one. Sometimes it can be expensive to be cheap, but normally it's reasonable. Thank you for watching my videos. Do subscribe so that you can see me again. Have a nice day. Bye bye.